And what we do every day around this time, 9:30-ish to 10 o'clock or 5 past 10, we get a person that we consider to be one of the champion people, but that's consistent with what I do as champion South Africa, and the need in making this link that champion people build champion nation. So I'm delighted to tell you that my guest today is Rehana Moosajee. She's very much embrace of this whole champion ethos. She's the founder, the owner of the Barefoot Facilitator. Rehana, good chatting to you. Salaam alaikum.
As well as for setting up Champion South Africa, a really important initiative.
Okay, of course, visuals allows us to see what you're wearing, and I'm looking at your outfit and where you are. I take it you're at home, but it's all like you dressed for the occasion. Tell me about what you're wearing, because I understand that it's very deliberate.
So Ashraf, I think it is. It's really intended, and I think often our identities as South African Muslims whose ancestry may lay on other continents, but who are born South African, carry identities and articulate in ways that suggest, and I mean, I have a real challenge with people who still refer to themselves as Indian, simply because I was not born on that continent. I was born in South Africa, on the continent of Africa, consider myself African, but I think our multiple identities, African, Muslim, woman, sometimes it's very difficult to convey identity in a particular way. So I guess, yeah, it is a little bit deliberate. Yeah.
Well, it's what I expect of you, because I mean, you must correct me if I'm wrong. I can't. I mean, I've known you for many, many years. We first connected at The Voice a long, long time ago. Julie Ali, by the way, just mentioned that as well a few days ago, where there's some bad sound of mine coming through. I just want to check if Ziad can sort that out as to why there's feedback. But I have a sense from the very first time we met, there's nothing ever that you've done that is not intentional. I mean, there's a very deliberate line, very purposeful about all the things you've ever done.
I try, Ashraf, and I don't think it's been purposeful per se. I think it's the ability to know that there is a higher being in charge of your life, and that as much as you plan and put intention and niyyah to what you're doing, life sometimes takes you in directions you didn't anticipate. But I think you are in control of your attitude to the things that happen and that life brings. And yes, I've had more than my share of challenges in my life, but in many, many ways feel very, very grateful for the opportunities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has afforded me in my time on earth thus far.
Okay, and I also think, and then just zoom in on this here, you don't call yourself as a company the Barefoot Facilitator and then just suggest, we couldn't think of a better name. I think that must be very, very deliberate. So tell me why you call what you do the Barefoot Facilitator, and perhaps what you do.
So Ashraf, in 2013, I resigned after 13 years in the city of Johannesburg, February of 2013 to be precise. And at the time, I'd set up the company to be Rehana Moosajee Consulting. And then over a period, through some personal issues, was finding the need to rename the company and kind of drop some parts of the previous identity without compromising the values and ethos of what the company stands for. And it was actually very literal initially. I was facilitating a session in the city of Tshwane in Transport Month, and kicked off my shoes whilst I was facilitating, and came home and spoke to my children, Adil and Fahima, and said, what if I called the company the Barefoot Facilitator? And they said, that's cool. And checked out the name, and there is another international Barefoot Facilitator, but the company name in South Africa was available with SIPSI, and kind of that's where it started, very literally. But I think over a period of time, Ashraf, that the name feels very consistent with the idea of being grounded, of facilitating authentic conversation, in organizations, and breaking the disconnect that people often have with the natural environment, with other people, and with themselves. And my work is really focused on bringing a different way of getting people in institution to talk to each other in ways that often doesn't happen because we're so politically correct, and we put up
Yeah.
such big walls in the way we have conversation, that we often don't have the tough and real conversation. And so a lot of what the Barefoot Facilitator does is to bring in to institutions, firstly invite people to bring their whole authentic selves into spaces with them. And so often people leave behind their souls, to connect with their souls on the weekend, and then just bring their bodies and their identities into their work. And I mean, I think you've chatted on this on the Champion South Africa platform for a while, that we should be very concerned when we all kind of say, thank God it's Friday, because we've kind of disconnected from ourselves and our abilities for the whole of the week. And so really inviting people to bring their whole selves, their authentic selves. And I think the notion, Ashraf, that we all have a purpose, and we don't need to be replicating somebody else's purpose. We need to actually be living our purpose unashamedly so. And that ultimately, my personal belief that we will account to our Creator for the gifts and skills that we were given, and that we either utilized in service to humanity and environment, or we chose to not utilize, and that we will, in fact, be accountable for that.
Yeah. So to clear it up, then your purpose is what?
So I think my purpose is really connection, connecting people to themselves, connecting people to each other, and connecting people to the natural environment, particularly in large metropolitan cities in South Africa, where we tend to be very disconnected and think we're going to reconnect with nature when we go to the mountain or the sea, particularly us who are Joburg based. But I think a reminder that every morning you have the ability to connect to the sky, the sunrise, the sunset daily, and that in many ways, Ashraf, given that we are in Ramadan, that the Islamic calendar is punctuated, whether it's the salahs punctuated through the movement of the sun, or the lunar calendar and the moon that dictates so much of what we're currently observing, and how we kind of enter each month, that the Islamic calendar keeps us very much in sync with natural rhythm.
Yeah, very
Um,
true. Yeah.
and that we
I
sometimes
think about
miss
I
those
think about I think about
components.
I think about your point about the barefoot part of it, right? In terms of the facilitator, that when we think of a child who's barefoot, and they're walking on grass, they're sort of tiptoeing, and we don't do it enough. Of course, you do it more than I do, but it's ticklish, it's uneasy, it's also a pleasure, but there's lots of small steps that you take, right? I mean, is that a lot of what you do, getting people in terms of finding themselves or their true selves to explore spaces that they've never explored, well, ever?
Absolutely, Ashraf. So, I mean, I think my passion is for people, place, planet, and potential. And that, yes, I mean, a lot of what I do as part of my work is about creating experiences for people that shift them and stretch them often out of the conventional. A lot of times, kind of bringing silence and the power of silence into the work that I do. And again, Ashraf, for me, it's particularly interesting that a lot of these notions, I mean, the idea of being barefoot in Salah, and
Mm,
the sacredness with which you approach things when you are barefooted, um, the fact that our salahs contain both salahs that are expressive and loud and silent, that there are many messages of balance that come through our faith that we don't necessarily carry into other parts of our life. And of course,
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
whilst the Barefoot Facilitator, is a secular organization, I think for me at a personal level, I bring a lot of my own spirituality and the experiences that life has brought me to bear on the kind of facilitation work that I do.
Well, absolutely. Well, there you are. If you you should be inspired, Rehana Moosajee, the Barefoot Facilitator. More from her in a moment as we explore the type of impact she's made in her life. And believe me, she has made an impact. More from her in a moment.
The best of you are those who learn the Quran and teach it to others. Bukhari. Penny Appeal's Hifz Orphan program ensures that a child not only learns the blessed Quran, but also lives and practices the values our religion and Quran teaches. It is a beautiful opportunity for a child to turn their life around, creating a lasting relationship that brings faith, hope, and follows the prophetic tradition. Sponsor a Hifz Orphan today and enable positive contributions to society. Give change to make change. Visit www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 0011 573. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Over 30,000 children were treated at the emergency centre at Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital in 2020. This year, the Children's Hospital Trust calls on you to gift your charity towards the purchasing of life-saving medical equipment.
Elevate your Ramadan, share your Sadaqah Jariyah and give the gift of life to sick and injured children. Donate today. Visit childrenshospitaltrust.org.za.
Elevate your Ramadan, elevate your rewards.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
My Lord, show me right from wrong.
Huda SA is an organization that focuses primarily on assisting communities within the eThekwini region by collaborating with existing Islamic centers, mosques and madrasas. Your contribution goes towards the uplifting of orphans and vulnerable children, including vulnerable families, by assisting with education, welfare, nutrition and maintenance of madrasas, mosques and Islamic community centers. Make the difference. Donate to our noble causes. More information is available at huda-int.org or WhatsApp or call us on 031 271 3049.
My Lord, show me right from wrong. Give me light, make me strong. I know the road is long.
It's been a household name for years. It's been an important ingredient in South African kitchens, and it's been an affordable, healthy choice for your family. Helios. First our pure sunflower cooking oil, and now introducing Helios margarines and spreads. Following the same traditions and tastes you've grown to love and trust from Helios. Fortified with vitamins A, D, and E, also rich in omega-3 and 6 essential fatty acids for a healthy eating lifestyle. Helios margarine and spreads. Available now at all leading South African supermarkets. Helios margarine. The tradition lives on.
This Ramadan, can we still feel the heartbreak, the grief, the pain? Islamic Relief needs you to keep feeling, because believers are like one body. When any part aches, the whole body aches. Feel their pain. From just 450 Rand, You can ease their pain this Ramadan. Donate now to Islamic Relief. Visit www.islamic-relief.org.za.
This is the Ashraf Garda Show, 8 to 10 a.m. and you're listening to Salam Media.
So great privilege to have Rehana Moosajee with me as featured as one of the champion people for today, certainly for the whole month, but just for today. She's the founder, owner of the Barefoot Facilitator, right? So Rehana, we were talking about some of the things you do, and I'm interested about, I know a lot about you, but let me not be presumptuous. I think it's good to hear it from you. Let's talk then about the impact in terms of the work you do now. I mean, in your consultancy, in your training, what sort of impact are you making? Give me some examples.
So Ashraf, I mean, I want to actually talk about two aspects. The one is the actual impact of the work that the business does.
Yeah. Well, your business, I would sort of think you're interrelated. Yeah.
Yeah. But then the business is also funding and has started to fund a number of initiatives in the local community. Some of which I've talked about on other platforms with Julie and Nafisa on Salam Media. So there's a project. I work from a home office, always have. So it's not a COVID specific thing. Ever since I've set up the company, it's been a home office based company. And I live across from a park. And when I got out after hard lockdown last year and saw the state of the park, was appalled and decided to do something about it, and working with a group of young people from the local informal settlement. So the business is supporting that initiative. Through that initiative, it's given birth to something called Transforming Slovo, which is the informal settlement, which is a 5-minute walk from my house. And again, working with a few young people there to begin to unleash people's own agency to change their own circumstances. Because I think, Ashraf, often there's a tendency to kind of want to rush in and do things for people. It's a lot more difficult to actually move, because I think 26 years into democracy, one of the things that we've done really badly in South Africa is actually create a dependency syndrome on the assumption that government you promised and government you will and shall come and do stuff for us, and literally taking away people's agency to do their own thing. So I think at the moment, Ashraf, I'm in this interesting balancing act between kind of running the business, which I find very fulfilling and love the work I do, but really wanting to generate income to be able to support initiatives that take what I talk about in theory. So often I talk on international platforms, Ashraf, about placemaking, about job creation, about poverty alleviation, but taking what I talk about in theory and testing that in reality. And of course, it's so much more difficult when you're actually trying to do it, Ashraf, rather than just talking about it. So at the moment, the Barefoot Facilitator has set up a fund called the Nyuki Fund, which is in the business, and that business is actually trying a couple of experiments, I guess.
Okay, now I need to take closer attention to that and come and see the type of work you guys have done at the park opposite your house. I will endeavor to do just that, which I think is great, right? In terms of your work, therefore, as a facilitator, I mean, how do you measure the impact you make there?
So Ashraf, let me give you a sense of some of the clients I'm working with. So currently I do some work for South African Cities Network, which is a network of the, 7, because sometimes City of Cape Town thinks it's in the Independent Republic of Cape Town, but 7 metropolitan municipalities in the country, working with built environment practitioners in particular on what it's going to take to transform apartheid spatial form. I then also do some work as part of a collaboration with a company in Cape Town for National Treasury in a project called City Support Program, where we're looking specifically at what kind of partnerships are needed to build inclusive growth. I then also serve on 2 boards, internationally on the board of the Institute for Transport Development Policy, which has offices across the globe. And then locally, I serve on the board of an NGO called Play Africa, which I'm particularly passionate about, the right of every child to play, which in a safe environment, which I think, Ashraf, is a right that we often take for granted because so much of children's development is shaped in those early years, and their kind of formative experiences before they even hit primary school or preschool. And I think we sometimes miss the development trajectory. So that's kind of some of the work I do. I do some advisory to Uber South Africa, and then a range of ad hoc assignments. But the impact is really around facilitating in a way that drops people deeper into themselves so they come to their own work and what they're trying to do with a sense of purpose, but also realizing that we can't do things alone. That often it's our ability to connect with others. And I think, Ashraf, I just want to salute you at this point, because I think if I look at Champion South Africa and through a simple WhatsApp group, Ashraf, that you initially started and kind of put a group of people together who you considered were cutting edge in some way or form in the work they were doing, but the connections that has given rise to. And if I look at the way in which those connections that you have created through Champion South Africa have actually, so yesterday, Catherine Constantinides, who's on Champion South Africa, twice over now, she's contributed to transforming Slovo without ever having seen the work that the team are doing. She just kind of collects books and says, I have books ready, or I have crayons ready for the kids. And a range of other connections that have come through that platform, Ashraf, that you have set up, that shows that we don't always have to be putting big money behind things.
I think you made the point about an event coming up soon where you've got the very much in the news, the incumbent Vice Chancellor of University of Cape Town, Mamokgethi Phakeng, also now speaking again to the connection made on that Champion South Africa, Champion Innovators platform, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm hoping, Ashraf, that given everything that the VC is dealing with, that she will still avail herself for our project called Healing Fields at South African Cities Network. But that project really acknowledging the kind of trauma that the country has been through, both people and place, and setting in motion a series of events, and the Prof coming on the 30th of April to Healing Fields. But interestingly, Abdullah Varachia from Gibbs, who I think was on this show earlier this week, also kind of saying, look, I have an interest in Healing Fields and what you're doing. So, just absolutely fascinated. The connection I've made to Mthunzi Mdwaba from the ILO, and a range of other work that Mthunzi does, the board chairman at Productivity South Africa. So I think, Ashraf, what you've done is to create champion connections that are giving rise to new things that would not have happened without the Champion South Africa movement that you have started, and really want to salute you for the work that you have started, and to say to you that is making a phenomenal difference in ways that perhaps you're not even always aware of.
Okay, so less about the tribute to me, because we're going to flip this around, and I mean, much appreciated. But I think the key takeout from all of this that you've mentioned, right? And I mean, this is the part I want to just amplify, is like how incredibly easy it is when you connect people that you can get things done, because there are people listening to us who don't have the platform that you and I have, but in their own spaces, they can still make those connections, right?
So Ashraf, I want to touch very quickly on a video I watched of a psychiatrist, a Prof. Mackenzie, originally British-born, living in Canada, but who talks about the importance of networks as pathways out of poverty. And I think we sometimes disregard that. I mean, I've just listened to a series of adverts in both your ad breaks now around kind of, this is what we're needing, deposit money. But sometimes it's not just about giving people money. A simple thing of using your networks could open up opportunities for people. And of course, those of us who are networked sometimes take our networks for granted. So I'll give you another example, Ashraf. As part of these young guys at Slovo who I'm working with, one of them has a drone pilot license. I mentioned this to a friend who has installed solar at my house, Sunny Morgan. Sunny's like, oh, Rehana, actually, I have a drone laying in my garage. I'm willing to gift the drone to young Tabo. And so Sunny heads over with his drone, and he gives this drone to Tabo and says, I hope you'll use this drone to earn some sort of income for yourself. And I guess that's what I'm talking about. Those of us who have networks often don't understand the power of those networks to people who don't have access to networks.
I so agree with you. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you are incredibly networked, and I certainly appreciate that of you. But let me ask you this. I mean, I have a sense, right? From your time in the city of Joburg, when you were an elected public official, and transport was your beat or your gig, and it's still very much a part of it. But the issue of spatial development and divide, that means, where do our cities and towns go to? I mean, that is close to your heart, right? Tell me about that.
So, Ashraf, I think we sometimes don't understand the impact. And I want to quote here Professor Amira Osman, who was our Healing Fields guest last month, who talked about how deliberate apartheid spatial planning was, that people sat and they planned. And those, people who've moved, and I know you've written about kind of, or been involved with kind of documenting forced removals from FITAS, but whether you're talking Cato Manor, whether you're talking District 6, I think there are many, many communities, Sophia Town, where people have the scars that we still bear from how apartheid spatial planning was done deliberately. And Amira was pushing back to say, are we being as deliberate about undoing the scars of apartheid spatial planning? Now, I think we sometimes don't appreciate what it means to have built form that you can't just change, because our cities were built in a very deliberate way to keep people apart. You have transport costs. Take someone living in Orange Farm or Lenasia or Lehigh or Vlakfontein trying to get not just to Joburg CBD, but the fact that post-democracy, your economic opportunities have actually moved further north. And so you have, in a city like Johannesburg, you have deep seas of poverty that are about multiple deprivation poverty indices. They're not just about economic poverty, they're about spatial dislocation. They are about societal and community dislocation. And so I think when we want to talk transformation of our spatial form, the answer actually lies, again, in the networks and communities that we want to bring together around the spatial form. And I think the COVID experience, Ashraf, has been particularly interesting. So the advent of community action networks, the coming to the fore of homeless people starting veg gardens and creating markets in supermarkets for their produce, showing what's possible if we start thinking beyond apartheid spatial form and what's possible. So, I'm particularly intrigued by the human agency and the transformation capacity that we have to change our own reality. But part of it must be getting out of the victim mentality, beginning to look at what resources we do have around us. And again, Ashraf, I mean, I draw quite a bit on the work of Otto Scharmer from the Presencing Institute at MIT in the States. But really the notion of that the biggest problem of our time is that we have three levels of divide: the ecological divide, the social divide, and the spiritual divide. And we actually have to move beyond those divides.
I tell you what, you've said so many things. Time is up, incredibly so. But you've got us to think about so many things. And maybe that's the good thing. Lots of the gems that you've spoken about, Rehana, forces us to think, to rethink, to be very present and mindful of who we are and what we want to do next. I'll leave you with this, if I may, just as a last thought, okay? You've been in politics, you are in politics, you're out of politics, but you're very much a South African and you have strong views on many things. Give me one line as to the one single thing we must address that needs the most urgent issue that needs addressing in our country right now. in a minute.
Inequality, Ashraf. We cannot, this level of inequality is unsustainable. We will all go down together if we don't deal with inequality.
And that's where we can leave, because it's a powerful thing. It's infinite in terms of what it really means. And we need to stop that. Rehana Moosajee, great chatting to you. A privilege to, in fact, connect with you on air as one of our champion people for the day. Assalamu alaikum.
Shukran, Ashraf. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
There you are, some gems of insights. I hope you made some notes. Absolutely. Okay. Quick one before we end. Umi Yusra's message saying, I love the Ashraf Garda show. Oh, it's so power-packed and energetic, gives a brilliant start to the day. Well, I'm delighted you feel that way. Then he says, when it comes to dates, well, I love having a date truffle for iftar. I've never quite tried that. Maybe we need to know exactly how. Let's end by telling you that Khadija Ibrahim is the guest with Mariam Kwanda coming up after around 12 o'clock. Don't miss that, okay? And she's got a fascinating story, including she's the founder of the Ramadan Revolution. I don't quite know what that is, but what I do know is I'll be back tomorrow, 8 to 10, and I expect you to be a part of the show as well. Assalamu alaikum.